Mysterious triangular aircraft spotted near Area 51 sparked theories of secret US military technology. A mysterious triangular shaped aircraft reportedly spotted flying near the highly classified Area 51 facility in Nevada has reignited speculations about secret American military technology and advanced aerospace programs hidden from the public eye. Now let's dig deeper into the story and uncover what really happened on our AI
Okay,
podcast.
let's unpack this. The United States military has spent decades and literally billions of dollars trying to um, basically paint the sky black.
Right. Decades of research.
Yeah. They've engineered these fleets of stealth aircraft designed to be effectively invisible, just slipping through enemy airspace without leaving a trace.
Mhm.
But last week, a YouTube channel managed to completely shatter that multi-billion-dollar invisibility cloak.
Using off-the-shelf camera equipment, no less.
Exactly. And, to me, that collision between shadow technology and civilian observation is exactly what we need to get into today. So welcome to another deep dive. Our source material for this is a really fascinating new analysis titled The Groom Lake Triangle, Next-Gen Stealth over Area 51.
It's a great read. It completely upends how we think about military secrecy.
Totally. And our mission today is to cut straight through all the wild speculation on social media. We're going to examine what this specific newly sighted aircraft actually reveals about the next generation of American air combat.
Because we are so accustomed to the idea that these advanced defense projects are, completely insulated from public view.
Right. And we'll also look at how this entire event is repeating a very specific, deeply classified historical pattern. Because we all know the pop culture lore of Area 51, but today we are dealing with actual thermal imaging and cutting-edge defense budgets.
Exactly. To really understand what was captured in that image, we have to synthesize modern aerospace strategy with a decades-long legacy of government secrecy. It's not just about the superficial shape of the craft.
No, not at all. So let's get right into the catalyst for all of this. There's a YouTube channel called Project Fear.
Right, the guys out in the desert.
Yeah, they were filming out in the Nevada desert, right near the perimeter of Area 51, and they captured an image of a very distinct triangular aircraft.
A very bulky triangle.
Yes. But what stood out to me in the source wasn't just the shape, it was the specific piece of equipment they used to capture it. They were using a 10-micron thermal scope.
Which is a highly specific tool.
Right, and I'll admit, I'm a bit confused by how this works, because I've always pictured stealth as like an absolute invisibility cloak.
Like a magic trick.
Yeah, like radar hits the plane and just vanishes.
Yeah.
So how does a civilian thermal camera bypass all of that highly classified billion-dollar engineering?
Well, that is the exact right question to ask because it really exposes the physical limitations of stealth technology. What's fascinating here is that when we talk about stealth, we are primarily talking about defeating radar.
Okay, so just radar.
Radar works by sending out bursts of radio waves, and if those waves hit a solid object like, say, a traditional airplane, they bounce back to the receiver.
Which obviously reveals the plane's location.
Exactly. So stealth aircraft are built with this highly specific angular geometry designed to scatter those radio waves away from the receiver.
Along with like specialized paint that absorbs whatever's left right.
Spot on. The specialized radar-absorbent materials.
So they essentially make the plane look like a bird, or just nothing at all, to a radar dish.
Yeah, to a radar dish, it's practically invisible. But here's the catch thermodynamics.
Heat.
Right. You can hide an aircraft from radio waves, but that aircraft is still powered by jet engines burning fuel at thousands of degrees.
I mean, it has to fly somehow.
Exactly. And as it moves through the atmosphere at high speeds, the friction alone generates intense heat along the leading edges of the wings. And the simple fact is, you cannot paint over heat.
Oh, wow. So that's where this 10-micron scope comes in.
Precisely. A 10-micron scope doesn't care about radar waves, and it doesn't care about visual light. It is specifically calibrated to detect long-wave infrared radiation.
So it's looking for the heat exhaust.
Right. Now, the Earth's atmosphere naturally blocks a lot of infrared light. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, they absorb it. But there is a specific, what they call an atmospheric window between 8 and 14 microns.
And infrared light passes through that window.
Almost perfectly. So by using a 10-micron scope, these YouTubers essentially found a loophole in the atmosphere to look directly at the heat exhaust of an aircraft.
Okay, so instead of thinking of this as having like predator vision, which I know is a bit of a sci-fi cliche,
A very common one.
it's actually more like having a pair of high-end noise-canceling headphones at a really loud party.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to frame it.
Like, you're filtering out all the visual noise of the night sky, and you're completely bypassing the radar-absorbent camouflage just to tune directly into the specific, unavoidable frequency of engine heat.
You are isolating the signal from the noise, exactly. And, decades ago, the military only had to worry about pure nation-states possessing that kind of sensitive infrared tracking.
Like the Soviet Union.
Right. But today, commercial equipment has advanced so rapidly that a civilian operation can point a commercially available lens into the sky and capture an anomaly near a restricted testing site.
And the moment that image hit the internet, I mean, the reaction was just explosive.
Oh, the aviation enthusiasts went wild.
Defense analysts, conspiracy theorists, everyone started debating what this thing was. There's this great quote in the article from an ex-user that perfectly captures the mood. They said, "One unidentified aircraft near Area 51 automatically creates more questions than answers."
Which is very true.
Because when you look at this shape, this bulky, flat triangle, it forces you to ask what the military is prioritizing. If they know this craft throws off a massive thermal signature that can't be hidden, they must be sacrificing thermal stealth to gain an advantage somewhere else.
And based on the rumors swirling in the defense sector, that advantage is processing power.
Processing power. Okay, which brings us to the leading theory for what this triangle actually is, Boeing's rumored F-47.
Right, the centerpiece of the new strategy.
But I have to push back on the terminology here for a second. The article refers to the F-47 as a fighter jet. But when I hear fighter jet, my brain instantly goes to Top Gun.
Maverick, right.
Yeah. I picture dogfights, a lone pilot pulling intense G-forces, doing barrel rolls in the clouds. If this triangle is the new F-47, how is a bulky, flat wing supposed to outmaneuver a traditional aerodynamic jet?
Well, the short answer is it isn't supposed to outmaneuver them.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The concept of the traditional lone wolf dogfighter is fundamentally dead in next-generation aerospace strategy.
Completely dead.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the F-47 is rumored to be the focal point of what the military calls the Next Generation Air Dominance Program, or NGAD.
Oh, right, NGAD. That's America's sixth-generation combat strategy.
Exactly, and its defining characteristic is not speed, and it is definitely not maneuverability. It is information dominance.
Information dominance. The article actually explicitly calls it a flying command center.
Right, and to understand what a flying command center does, you have to look at the reality of a modern battle space. Today, the sky is just flooded with data.
Like radar and satellites and stuff.
Yeah, you have ground radars, satellite feeds, naval sensors, enemy electronic warfare signals, all of it firing simultaneously.
That sounds overwhelming.
It is. A human brain, no matter how highly trained the pilot is, simply cannot process that volume of information fast enough to make split-second combat decisions.
So we're basically saying the pilot isn't flying this triangle to shoot down other planes. The pilot is more like an orchestra conductor.
Yes, that conductor analogy is perfect. The F-47 is designed to coordinate what are called AI-powered drone swarms.
AI drone swarms. That sounds straight out of a movie.
It really does. These are uncrewed, heavily armed drones that fly far ahead of the F-47. They act as an extended sensor network. So the drones push into contested airspace, paint the targets, and share that data instantly via secure networks back to the F-47.
Okay, so the human pilot sits safely outside the immediate threat zone, inside this stealthy triangle, acting as the strategic decision maker.
Exactly. The AI handles the aerodynamics, the targeting math, and the engagement, while the human conductor dictates the flow of the battle. And operational deployment for this is expected in the early 2030s.
That is a staggering paradigm shift. I mean, we are moving from a pilot physically aiming a weapon to a pilot managing a network of autonomous flying AI robots.
It's a completely different way of fighting a war.
And the craziest part of the source material is realizing that this isn't just concept art hanging in a Pentagon hallway. Like, the military is actually putting real money behind this shift.
Right. Oh, they are putting historic amounts of money behind it. The U.S. Air Force recently submitted their budget request for fiscal year 2027, and they asked for a staggering $5.03 billion.
Wait, $5 billion?
$5.03 billion, specifically for the NGAD and F-47 programs.
Wow. You don't ask Congress for $5 billion unless you are actively bending metal and putting prototypes in the air.
You certainly don't. And that budget request provides the critical geopolitical context for why this triangle is flying over Nevada right now.
Which is China, right?
Exactly. The Air Force explicitly cited growing concerns over China's rapidly advancing military aviation technology.
So it's an arms race.
Very much so. The United States recognizes that maintaining air superiority is no longer about building a faster plane. It is a race for decision advantage. Whichever military can process battlespace data faster and integrate AI more seamlessly will win the conflicts of the 21st century.
And that $5 billion is a massive financial commitment to ensuring the U.S. doesn't lose that race.
Exactly.
So we have this intense, multi-billion-dollar arms race driving the creation of an AI orchestrating, thermal exhausting flying command center. But to really grasp why a blurry picture of this thing causes such a deeply emotional, almost supernatural reaction online,
Yeah.
we have to look down.
At the geography, yes.
Yeah, we have to look at the ground it's flying over.
Yeah.
Because Groom Lake has a very long, highly documented history of making people confuse cutting-edge physics with magic.
It is arguably the most famous piece of restricted land on Earth.
Area 51.
Right. It's located about 83 miles north-northwest of Las Vegas, situated right next to the Groom Lake salt flat. And the government established it in 1955, specifically because it was so remote.
And the salt flat helps, right?
Yeah, a dry salt flat provides a massive natural runway for experimental aircraft that might have, terrible low-speed aerodynamics.
Which makes sense. But for decades, the government essentially pretended it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Which created this enormous information vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. We all know the pop culture fallout from that. In 1989, you had Bob Lazar going on television claiming he worked at a nearby facility, like S-4, reverse engineering alien spacecraft.
Right, which instantly and permanently branded Area 51 as the UFO capital of the world.
Totally. But if we strip away the Hollywood scripts and the alien folklore, the actual declassified history of the base is far more fascinating to me.
Because it is a history of raw, unadulterated engineering pushing the boundaries of what was physically possible.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting. For decades, the public was largely kept in the dark. But then in 2013, the CIA finally declassified this massive 400-plus page report.
It was a huge deal when it dropped.
Right. It officially acknowledged Area 51's existence and detailed its true Cold War purpose. It's almost like they were pulling back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz.
That's a great analogy.
And reading the details of that report is amazing because it explicitly addresses the UFO sightings from the 1950s and 60s. The base was the primary testing ground for the U-2 spy plane and later the A-12 reconnaissance aircraft.
Yes, the Blackbirds.
But it's the specific mechanics of the U-2 testing that blew my mind.
You're talking about the altitude discrepancy.
Yes. Okay. So back in the 1950s, commercial airliners were completely unpressurized or barely pressurized, so they were puttering along at maybe 10,000 to 20,000 feet.
Which was standard for the time.
Right. So the general public and even commercial pilots had a very fixed, rigid idea of where airplanes belonged in the sky. If you looked up past 20,000 feet, there shouldn't be anything there.
It's just empty space.
Yeah. But the military was secretly testing the U-2 spy plane at altitudes exceeding 60,000 feet.
It was a 40,000-foot gap between public comprehension and military reality.
That is just wild to think about.
And that gap created a profound visual illusion. Because the U-2 was flying so incredibly high, it would catch the reflection of the sun long after the sun had set on the ground below.
So picture being a commercial pilot in the 1950s. You are flying in the pitch black of night at 20,000 feet.
Right.
You look up through your canopy, and 40,000 feet above you, you see this brilliant, glowing silver cross streaking silently across the black sky at impossible speeds.
Your brain just cannot process it as an airplane.
No. So naturally, you report a flying saucer.
And the declassified CIA report explicitly confirms this phenomenon. They wrote, and I quote, "High-altitude testing of the U-2 soon led to an unexpected side effect, a tremendous increase in reports of unidentified flying objects."
It literally birthed decades of UFO mythology. But here is the detail from the source that really stops you in your tracks. That 2013 CIA declassification was a massive revelation, but the timeline of the report stops at 1974.
And this raises an important question. It leaves over half a century of modern operations completely unaccounted for in the official public record.
Half a century, from the mid-1970s all the way to today's AI drone swarm.
Oh, yes.
Which means we are locked in the exact same cycle. The technology changes, but the human reaction remains identical.
It's a loop.
Yeah. In the 1950s, the public saw glimpses of a U-2 spy plane catching the sun, and lacking the context of high-altitude aerospace engineering, they assumed they were looking at flying saucers.
And today?
Today, a YouTube channel captures a massive triangular craft on a 10-micron thermal scope. And lacking the context of the F-47 program, AI drone orchestration, and thermal stealth trade-offs, the public is once again thrust into a state of bewildered speculation.
It is a remarkably consistent historical loop. And we have to consider that this ambiguity is actually a deliberate feature of Black projects.
Oh, absolutely.
It serves a highly effective dual purpose. By keeping the engineering details highly classified, the military protects its technological advancements, like its AI data link architecture, from adversaries like China.
Obviously.
But simultaneously, they allow the domestic mythology to run completely wild. The endless noise of conspiracy theories and online debates acts as its own form of camouflage, obscuring the signal of actual defense engineering.
That is so true. So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive right now? I think it serves as a powerful reminder that we are living in a world where science fiction is quietly, systematically becoming a budget line item right above our heads.
Very quietly.
Yeah, we were talking about $5 billion investments to create AI-powered drone swarms coordinated by invisible, thermal-exhausting triangular command centers. It really highlights the absolute necessity of critical thinking.
Without a doubt.
When you are scrolling online and you see a viral mystery or a blurry anomaly, remember that the truth, the actual physics and strategy behind the image, is often much more complex and honestly far more fascinating than the immediate sci-fi explanation.
To synthesize our journey today, we began with a single anomaly, a 10-micron thermal image that essentially used an atmospheric loophole to bypass traditional stealth geometry.
Right.
From there, we explored how that specific triangular shape points directly toward the multi-billion-dollar stakes of the NGAD program.
Our orchestra conductor.
Exactly, revealing a foundational shift in air combat away from traditional dogfighting and toward AI integration and information dominance. And finally, we grounded this modern technical mystery in the Cold War history of Groom Lake, recognizing that the public confusion between classified engineering and the supernatural is a deeply ingrained historical pattern.
We started this deep dive talking about how the military spends billions of dollars painting the sky black. But clearly, the sky is filled with the highly visible results of an intense global technology race, if you just know which frequency to tune into.
Just need the right scope.
Yeah, exactly. And it leaves me with one final lingering thought for you to explore. We know that the U-2 spy plane created the massive UFO craze of the 1950s simply because it was flying 40,000 feet higher than anyone at the time thought was physically possible.
It shattered the assumptions of the time.
It fundamentally broke the boundaries of that era. So, looking at this new thermal image triangular craft coordinating networks of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Well, what completely unknown physical laws or aerospace boundaries might it be breaking today, in secret, that will inevitably become the folklore of tomorrow?
Okay, one question for you. Is the mysterious triangular aircraft spotted near Area 51 actually part of a classified 6th generation fighter program, like the rumored Boeing 747, or could it represent an entirely unknown military technology? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.